Hi, in this tutorial I want to explain what Spring Boot is all about and how you can develop Spring Boot Restful API with MySQL as your database. So before we proceed to the coding aspect, I want us to explain some terminologies and some dependencies that I use for the project. So the first one that I want us to talk about is Spring Boot application annotation, and the main function of this annotation is that it's used to mark a configuration. It's used to mark a configuration, and this annotation consists of three other annotations. The first one is configuration, enable auto configuration, and component scan. These three annotation consist of Spring Boot applications annotation. So the next thing that I want us to talk about is Spring Boot application class on its own. So the main function of this class is that it's bootstrap and launch a Spring application from a main method. See this class as like a main method in your Java. No, without main method in any Java application, the program cannot execute. So Spring Boot application class is also used to bootstrap and also launch Spring application from main method. So the next thing that I want us to talk about is REST controller annotation. REST controller annotation. And the main function of this annotation is that it's used for creating RESTful web services. They are used for creating RESTful web services. That is, they are used for what? For your creation of controller. That is, and when I talk about controller handle your HTTP request. Your controller annotation, they handle what? Your HTTP request. And when I'm talking about HTTP request, I'm talking about your get, your put, your post, and your delete. So controller annotation help us with the HTTP request. And the next annotation that I want us to talk about is request param. And request param, the main function of the annotation is that it binds the value of the query parameter into the method parameter. It's bind what? The value of the what? Of the query parameter into what? Into the what? Method parameter. And the next thing that I want us to talk about is path variable. And the main function of this annotation is that it's what? It bind the method parameter to the URI template. It bind the main function of the difference between this, that this one path variable bind to URI template, while request param bind to the what? To the query parameter. Now during the coding section, I will explain more on that. Difference between the I will explain difference between the path variable and the request param, because the request param bind the value of the query parameter into what? Into method parameter. Why the path variable bind the URI template to what? To your method parameter. So the next that I want us to talk about is request body annotation. And request body annotation is get linked to the HTTP request body. It get what? It's linked to the what? To the HTTP request body. The next thing is what? Request mapping. And request mapping is general purpose request handling. It's handle all request or HTTP request. Like for instance, you want to perform delete operation. You want to perform put HTTP operation. It help us to what? To handle that. So request mapping is general purpose request handling. and also it's more clearly and specific to HTTP method that it targets. So if you are using request mapping, you must target a particular HTTP request method. Now the next annotation is get mapping. So get mapping now is targeting only get request. It's only targeting the only get request. I think it's handle the HTTP get request. So it's only, you can't perform delete request with get mapping. It's only target a particular request. Why request mapping target any of the four? What you don't need is to just target, okay, you want to use this, you want to use this, you want to use, maybe you want to use post or you want to use put. But get mapping only target a get request. Same thing to what? To post mapping. Post mapping handle the HTTP post request. Why put mapping? Put mapping handle only put request. Same to what? To delete mapping. To handle the delete request. And the next thing is what? Auto wire annotation. And the main function of auto wire annotation is that it is used for DI, for dependency injection. So that's the main function of auto wire annotation. And the next annotation the next I want us to talk about is the property. And when I talk about property, the main function of property is key value storage for configuration properties. For your configuration, maybe you want to add some features to your program, like for instance you want to change the port server port number. You can do that inside your application property. You can use application properties. And the next thing that I want us to talk about is data annotation. And data annotation is used with Loombook. Loombook is a library. Later I will explain that. And data annotation is at class level and is used to produced by Loombook. And the main function of this is that it helps us to handle our model, that is our entity. It helps us to generate the getter, setter, and constructor for us. Instead of us to generate that, it generates that for us at runtime. So the next thing I want us to talk about is Mocaro. And Mocaro is a platform that helps you with realistic text data in CSV, JSON, or SQL is format. It helps us to generate like a dummy, like you are working on a project and you need dummy data. The reason why I use this platform because I'm trying to implement paging features in the application. So for me to retrieve like like a particular number of data instead of retrieving all, so that's why I'm using paging to retrieve. Like for instance, I want to retrieve first 1 to 20 or 1 to 200 instead of me to retrieve the whole 1000. So that is the main function of the paging. So the next thing that I want us to talk about is the dependencies that I use for this project. The first one is Loombook library, and the main function of this is automatically generate getter, setter, constructor at runtime. The next one is Swagger library, and Swagger library is used for your API documentation. It's used for API documentation, and is used. Swagger library is it simplify API Swagger library it simplify API development for user, team, and enterprise. With the Swagger open source and professional toolset. So the main function of this library is that it's used for API documentation. So you can check their site swagger.com, but the main function of it is that it's used for documentation. If you want to document your application, so it helps us to handle the API documentation. So the next thing is MySQL connector, and the main function of this is our MySQL connector to our Spring Boot application. So the main function is just connect our database to our application. And that is the main function of this dependency, and the next one is JPA. And the main function of that is that is connect our Spring application with our relational database efficiency. Thank you. So now let's move to coding aspect. Let's try to do some coding. So now the first that I want us to know is that because we are working with database, you will need server. But I'm using XAMPP as my local server. I'm using XAMPP, so I'm already running my SQL on port 3306. So you also need this. In as much as you are running it on your local machine, you need your XAMPP to run your MySQL. The reason is because if you fail to do that, and I'm using my SQL workbench, and if your server is not working, your workbench also cannot work. So you need to what? So make sure that you have your XAMPP and install on your machine, and make sure that your MySQL is running. So the next thing is that from the I explained before about the mock. Let me show you the site mockaro, and this is the site, and the site help us to what? This is the site. You can see now I can declare my feed. You can see my feed name, my feed type, maybe it's number or first name or the kind of stuff. So when I input my feed that I need, I change this to SQL and I name this customer, and I already installed that. I already download my. I already download. I don't want to download it again. I just name it, but I name the one I download customer, and I include the table, and I create that. So when I create that, this is what now after that I was this is my okay, yeah, this is my, you can see if you download it, if you have something like this, you can see it will automatically generate this for you. Insert this is 1000 data. Now compare for me writing all this, you can see that it's not funny. So with mock carry, it will generate all this for me. And now also I made the query, because I made the length, and also I made that okay, my name must not be null, and I make my ID increment, auto increment, and I make my email to be unique, and I make my phone number also to be unique. So after the link to the project is in the description, you can check, and the query also is included for the project. You can also check that. And so now let's try to check if we have this in our database. Let's try to check. Let's try to show all our database to see if we have something like this. So let's run this command, and this is what show database, and this will show all the list of my database. You can see that I don't have anything like customer database. You can see I don't have anything like this. I already deleted from the from my SQL so that I can explain this to you. I've already deleted. So now I don't have anything like customer database. What I need to do now is that I want to execute this command, and this command will create a database, create a table named customer, and insert all this data inside my table. Let me run this command to see it in action. You can see that it's already inserting all the data. You can see. So now for me to confirm if this data is already inserted, let me try to now run this command now, show database. If you observe, you can see that there's a database called customer. You can see customer database, and if I execute this command now, for me to retrieve all data from the customer table. You can see these are the list of all my data, meaning that the data is already inserted successfully. So now what I need to do now that I've already confirmed that I have data in my database, so the next thing, let's move straight to the program. So the first that I want us to explain is the application properties. And if you remember before, I said the application property is used for our configuration. You can see now that I'm saying that okay, the server should run on port 8080, and this is the link, that the URL to my database. And if you observe, this is localhost 3306, and this 3306, if you observe before, is what is the same thing as this port for my SQL. So that is the port and the name of the database, and the root, username root, and this is the driver. This is the driver. So now let's move to the model, my entity. And if you observe before, I mentioned of a loom book, and I said that loom book, the main function of it is that it generates getter and setter for us, and also it generates constructor for us. You can see this is my model. There's nothing like getter, setter. I only include this. You can see I only include this, and I only include this in my program, the loom book, and loom book will generate the getter and setter for me. This is the annotation. Annotation is what is data. This data annotation that help me with the information. And the next thing that I want to talk about is that the entity. I want to make this class to be my entity, and the name of the table should be customer. You understand? Which I already did that. To be what? To be customer. So that is just the unique thing about loom book. So for our model, our entity now, you don't need setter, you don't need getter. Loom book handle that for us. And the next that I want us to talk about is our let's talk about the let me explain this repo. Now this is an interface, and before I mentioned of JPA, and JPA helps us a lot. You know, JPA come with a lot of method that we can implement in our code. We can see this paging and sorting, and paging and sorting also extend CRUD repo. And our CRUD repo, you can see here, optional, generic, find by ID. Now see, with this method, you can use this method to find a particular customer based on the ID. You can say that okay, we want to return the list. We want to retrieve all our customer. So with this method, all this method help us. All this method, we can implement all this method in our project because of the JPA library that we used before. So from here now, this customer repo is extending this, and we are passing the customer and the integer as the ID, and the ID is integer. If you check the customer class, you can see that our ID is integer. So from here now, based on the fact that I'm extending this now, I already have access to all this method and to all this method. You understand now? So now let's talk about the controller, the one that handle the HTTP request. Now this is the request mapping. Now you can see that this is the part, this is the part that localhost, like for instance now, let's say that this is the part, and I'm targeting the API customer, and this is the URL part, that if the user want to have access to our program, he must enter the localhost, the port, and this You understand this part. And the next thing, if you observe, is that request mapping is general purpose. It's not like request get mapping or post mapping or put mapping. So request mapping is what is general purpose request. You understand now? Mean that this request API customer is what is the part that is, if you want to declare your URL, you must make sure that you call this part. You see, because it's what is general. So the next thing that I want us to take note of is this line 22, which is delete mapping, meaning that I'm deleting the mapping based on this placeholder. This is placeholder that I must provide what? The ID. You understand? I'm going to provide what? The ID. And in this aspect now, you can see that the API customer is not included. I just use slash and the placeholder. And if you observe, I'm using path variable. Here you see now, I'm using what? I'm using the path variable. And I see that path variable is what? Is method parameter that bind to the what? URL template. It binds to the what? To URL template variable. Let's say for instance now I want to what? To delete the last user. And if for me to do that, okay, let me explain everything first before I try to test, because I will use Postman to test my request. So now let me just explain that. Mean that okay, I'm taking the ID, and the ID will be bound to my URL template. And what I'm doing here, that I'm getting the ID, and the ID, if you observe, ID is returning optional generic, meaning that okay, is returning optional. It's not returning customer. If you observe from here, it's not returning customer. It's returning what? Is returning optional customer. But the reason why I'm using that main function, I'm using get, and get will get the customer instead of optional customer. So mean that using this, I'm getting the customer, and I'm deleting the customer, and I'm retrieving the response entity. So you understand now? I'm getting the response entity, and response entity is nothing like is represent the HTTP response. So you understand? That is the main function of what? Of the response entity is represent the HTTP response, which include the header, the body, and the status. That is where I'm using this status here 404 that is not found. And so after you delete this, I want it to return the customer, and I'm using OK, meaning that okay that is the person is available, that okay, and I'm retrieving what? The customer. You understand now? So the next thing that I want us to talk about from here is get customer by ID. And if you observe from here, what I'm doing is that I'm passing a what? An integer, which is my ID is integer. I'm passing it to this again, to the placeholder. And what I'm doing here is that I'm getting now, I'm getting the find by ID, and find by ID is returning. You can see, okay, I did not change this one to customer. I'm using optional what? Optional customer. Optional customer. You can see. So mean that I'm calling my optional and taking the customer, and I'm also returning the customer. And now the only data that we get here is only the data of this ID. I'm only getting the data of this ID that is declared here. So if I input ID of 1, I only get the customer of that ID. So, and if there's any error, that's why I use try and catch. If there's any error, you should return the error code and no. Now the next thing that I want us to talk about is what? Add new customer. If I want to add new customer, so I'm taking what? Request body. And before I did that request body is get link to the HTTP request body. It's getting so meaning that I must provide this. If I want to add, I must provide this information to my HTTP body if I want to add new user. That's why, and if you observe, you can see that for this I'm using delete mapping, for this I'm using get mapping, and for this, for what, for adding, I'm using what, post mapping for adding customer. And what I'm doing here is, if you observe this method save is, you can see, is in my CRUD repo interface, and is returning what, is taking what, is taking object, which is taking s, and is returning s extend t. Mean that I must pass in the what, the object, the class that I'm using, and from here I'm passing the customer that the user pass to the request body. And if you take note of that, before I mentioned of AutoWire, and I said that AutoWire is used for what, is used for DI, for dependency injection. And if you can see that I use REST controller here. And before I said that REST controller is used for creating RESTful controller, and RESTful controller is handle our what, our HTTP request. And from here I'm using this class, because, and if you observe here, there's nothing like any method here, there's no method here. But if you observe here, because I'm using AutoWire, I'm already injecting this class, this interface. I'm injecting this interface. Because of that, I have access to every method that this interface extend. Customer repo, check, extend paging, this also extend this. So because of this in my customer controller, I have access to define by ID. I have access to what, to save. I have access to what, to save. You can see I have access to save. And here, let me explain this. This is put mapping for updates. And for me to put, I need to provide the ID and also the customer as a request body. As a request body, I need to provide the customer details and what, the ID. And now, when I'm talking about customer, I mean that I must provide all this information. I must provide all this information. That's what I mean by customer. If I'm talking about customer, I mean all this information: their phone number, their email, their city, state, country, and gender. That's what I mean by all this information. By customer, I must provide customer information at the request body. So the next thing that I want us to talk about is what, to get. Now, before I mentioned of paging. Now this is now where the main function of that paging now. And from here I want to get all customer, and I have thousands of users, thousands of customer in my database. And if I retrieve all this data at once, and if the internet is not strong, it might freeze my application. Like for instance, if you have like a millions of information of customer, like let's take Udemy for example. You know, they have a lot of customer, a lot of students. So for them to now retrieve all the 1 million, it will not be friendly. Like you want to retrieve 1 million customer at once, student at once. So it might freeze the application. So because of that, that's why I'm using paging. That okay, I want to retrieve only from first page 20 customer. Okay, from first page retrieve only 50 customer. And here you can see that I'm passing the default value. Okay, the page number should be from page 1, and I must pass the page number in my part, that is the URL in my query. and I must also provide the page size in my query. And that, if you observe here, this is page number and page size, but I'm using -1, and the main function of this -1 is that because array start from 0, and if I fail to use it, start from 1. So for us to start from 0, that means that I'm subtracting the 1 from it to make it 0, so it will start from 0. Then from here I can now find all, and I provide it. And if I find all, I must use this method to get content. If not so, I will also get some extra information. But that's the reason why I'm using this get content, to get only the content. I don't need any extra information, only the content of the customer. So that is all about the application. Is not much, but let's see this in action. So now we are using Postman, and you can also use your browser. Let's say for instance now I want to retrieve all information of user. I can just check my local host, and mind you, after local host, the next thing is what? API dot customer. You can see, okay, API. Okay, let me run the application. Let me run the application. Okay, the XAMPP is working. You can see now that the XAMPP is working. I already launched the application. You can see that I'm retrieving all information, that is from 1 to 10. Don't forget, from what? From 1 to 10, based on this by default. That's okay. Retrieve from 1 to 10. Let's say that I want to change this to 2 and increase this to 50. Let's see what will happen. Let's relaunch the application and try to query again. Mind you, the last number is what? Is 10, and it starts from where? It starts from what? From 1. Let's try to execute this again and see what will happen. You can see now that it's starting from what? 51, and it's ending with what? With 100. So you can see now that based on this, that okay, 2 you start from 2, that is okay, from 51 upward. You understand? So that is the main function of page. Instead of me to retrieve every the whole thousands of information. So the next thing that I also want to discuss about is how you can update, how you can delete, how you can also what? Add. But for us to implement this, to test this, we can't do it with our browser. We need a Postman. This is the Postman. So for us, like for instance now, I can also execute the same thing that I execute in my browser. You can see if I execute here now, you can see I'm getting 10. And let's say for instance I want to now let me explain. Let me start from the first one. So the first one here is what? Is delete customer. And if I want to delete, I must provide the ID as a placeholder in the path. So now for me to delete 1000 the user that have 1000 ID, first of all let me test if I have user that have 1000 ID. So if I execute this now, you can see I'm getting user that have 1000 ID. Now let's now say that I want to delete this user. So for me to delete this user, mind you that there's a what? There's a delete mapping, mean that I must use delete HTTP request method. So from here now, what I need to do is to change this to delete and now execute this. Let's see what will happen. Take note that when I execute this from the code, that if I execute this delete, it should return the word, the customer. And if you observe here, I'm getting the customer, and you can see status is 200. Okay. Okay. So let me try it again. You will see what will happen. You can see that is showing what? 404 not found. Meaning that I already delete this user. So now the next thing, you can determine, you can work on your response that, okay, well, you don't want to return the code. Maybe you want to write something to user. You can create an object. Okay, you want, if the user is not in the database, you return something readable for the customer. So the next thing that I want to explain is get user customer by ID, and I'm also provide also the ID as a placeholder, which I already implement that. Let me explain. Let me try with 99. So if I execute this now, oh sorry, I'm deleting. I need to also change this. See, because from the method is what is get mapping, meaning that I must use get HTTP request method. I must use get because of this. I must use get. So let me try to get data of the first person in the database, the first person. Let me get the data of the first person. You can see I'm getting the data of the first person. So now the next thing that I want to explain is what is the next thing? The next thing is add customer. And for me to add customer, let me come here and let me copy this. And take note of this, that for me to add customer, I must provide a request body, and the body must be what? Customer. Now the body must be what? Customer. I must provide the body, and the body must be customer. So let's assume that I want to add another customer. So here is let's check from here is what is put. No, is post for adding customer is what is post, meaning that for here also I must use post. Come to body, because I'm using what? I'm using add, and I must use what? Request body. So my body, I want to add the JSON. Let it be JSON, and let me copy this here, and let me change this to Samuel. Let me change this to Samuel, and let's see what will happen. Let me change this to Ayetulu Samuel, and my email is Ayetulu Samuel@gmail.com. So now, let's remove this. Let's remove the ID, because in our class, in our customer class, we declare our ID to be what? Auto increment. In our database, auto increment. So now let's try to execute this. Let's see what will happen. I'm getting error, internet server error. Okay, let me try to let me okay, let me come here. What is the error here? I'm getting error here. Let me try to check the error. Okay, it does not have the default value. Okay. The reason why I'm getting the error is because if you observe what I'm passing here, from here my phone number is what? Is null, mean that my phone number is empty. And if you observe from my query here, I said that my phone number should not be what? Should not be null. That is, my phone number must not be empty and must be unique. That is why I'm getting the error. Let me try to add phone number 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11. So let's try to execute it now and see what will happen. I'm still getting the error. I'm coming. getting the error. Let me see. I'm coming. Let me check here for the error. What caused the error? Phone number does not have the default value. Does not have a default value. Okay. No, does not have default value. Phone number. I'm coming. Let me 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11. So let me execute this now. It's supposed to work. Because why this error is coming. Put post. Now there's something I observe now. If we try to add customer, you can see I'm getting this error that okay, we could not execute statement, nested exception in this. And if we check our ID, our application, you will see that feed phone number does not have a default value. And the main reason for this is because if you check here, if you check here, our variable name is what? Is phone. And if you check our database here, I'm using what? Phone number. So you see, I'm using phone number, and here I'm using phone. So you see, so let me change it to phone number. Let me change this to phone number, and let's execute this. So you can see now that the reason I'm getting errors because there is the data in my database and my class, my model, that is my entity, is not the same. So let's try to test it now and let's see if it will work. Constraint. Okay, must not. No. Let me check this error again. I'm also getting another error. Let's check the error. Phone number cannot be no. Okay. Reason is because I did not update this phone number. So let's see now. It will work. You can see 1001. You can see. So if I want to retrieve get 1001 now, you can see that I'm getting my data back. So you see, mean that your class name must be the same. The class for your model, that is your customer, the variable name must be the same thing with what you use in your database. They must be the same thing. If no so, your program might crash. You can see now that is because of that make my program not to execute. So now I think I've explained I've explained add and now update. And for me to update, let's say for instance I want to update the first user in my database, and in Postman, and from here let's try to get the first person. This is the first person, and the name of the first person is Bobby Hickford, and let's say I want to update this user. And from here, don't forget the word we are using, put, because we are updating, we are using put. So here let's change this to put, and we are passing two parameters to our method. The first one is the integer, which is the placeholder, and what request body, meaning that we must provide request body and what, and the ID, which is the placeholder. And if I execute this now, you can see that this is the details of the user. But if I execute it, let's see what will happen. Okay, exception. What is the exception? Constraint email address. Email. Okay, reasons because before I said that my email should be unique, and my phone number also should be unique. So that is why. Let's try to execute it now. You can see. So because I indicate that okay, my email must be unique and my phone number also must be unique to avoid duplicate. You understand? So now the next thing is the get all customer, and from here, for me to get all customer, you can see. Let me see if I have. Okay, let me see here. Wow. Okay, for me to get a customer, so I need to pass the parameter. You can see I'm passing the I'm passing the page that okay start from page 1, and the limit should be 200, but let's limit it to 20. The page, and this page underscore page must be the same thing with what you use for your name here. Must be the same thing with what you use for your name here. So by default, we know that by default when I execute this, it's only return only 10 customer. But now I've changed this to 20 customer. So let's execute this. Okay, I'm sorry. I supposed to call get. Don't forget it, because from here is what get mapping. So I'm supposed to call get. So let me execute it now. Okay, what is going on? Was error connecting to localhost. Oh, sorry, because of the port number. I've changed the port number before, so I don't know. So the port number is 8080. So let's execute it now. You can see that I'm getting user from 1 to what, to 20, and I can also say okay, well, I want to get from page 34 to 10. So 10. So it will start from, let's run it to start from what, 31, 32. Okay, so that is that on that. And if you're having any issue or you're having any, okay, let me remove this content, because before I explain it, let me remove this content and execute the program. Let me execute the program. So you see the main function of this content. Now let me remove it, and let me my 1 and 10. Yeah, so let me try to execute this now. You will see what I'm talking about before. If you observe, you can see content. You can see content, and if you check, you can see pageable, sort, unsort, empty, offset, this. So for me to remove all these extra information. That's why I use this get content, because that okay, I'm only getting the content, not any extra information. Okay, now I want to explain how we can use the Swagger library, and this is the code that help us with the Swagger documentation. This your docket must return the object of docket and must pass in the APIs and the paths, and the API is the request handler and the request handler selector. That is okay. All the requests that we use in our controller, and the paths, all the paths that we use, and we just need to build. And for us to test this, if this is working, we need, let's navigate to our program. You can see from here, let's navigate to localhost, okay, swagger.html, swagger UI.html. So you can see this will generate our Swagger UI for us, and the UI, you can see the basic, I know implement this, the basic, customer basic, and you can see all our requests that we use in our customer controller, that is get all customer. And if you observe from here now, I can try this. Let me try this and pass in like 100. So, and if I execute this now, it will execute, you can see. So that is the unique thing about the Swagger library. So Swagger is have a friendly UI that you can use for your project. It will help you with the documentation of your API. Okay, for instance, if you are planning to deploy your application to your server, I mean to your web hosting company service that you are using, that is, you want to deploy your app to be like a standalone app, that is, you don't need to launch your IDE before you launch your application. For you to achieve this, you need to deploy your app in jar format or in WAR format. So the first thing that we need to do now is to use Maven to generate the jar file. And for us to do that, in the source code, there is this file named compiler.txt. So you can use this command to generate the jar file. But before I do that, I want to delete this because I already generated before. I want to delete it so that we can generate another one. So let me delete this now, and let me run this command to generate the jar file, so that we can use this file and deploy it to our server. So let me run the command mvn package spring boot repackage, and if I run this command, it will generate the jar file for me, which I can run as standalone application, meaning that I can run it without launching my IDE. Okay, I'm getting error here. Okay, I think the reason is because I have not launched my let me run my example. Okay, so now So now for us to achieve that is for us to build standalone application that does not require us to launch our IDE before running the application. That is, for instance, if you want to deploy the app to the cloud, to the hosting service provider that we are using, the first thing that we need to do is to generate the jar file, and for us to achieve that we are using Maven, and the command to achieve that is mvn package spring dash boot repackage. So with this command now, this command will repackage and generate jar file for us, and this jar file we can deploy this to our server. We can run it as standalone application, and if you observe here, you can see that it generates this, and this is the part of where the application is generated, and this is the folder target, and this is the name of the application that we can deploy. And if you observe here, you will see a folder named target, and if we try to expand it, we see Spring Boot called snapshot.jar. So this is our application that we can run. You understand? So now let me copy this. Let me paste it here, and let me delete this because I already deployed before. So now I want to rename this file to customer. Now I already renamed this to customer. I already named the file I generate this Spring Boot snapshot to customer. So we can run this now, and for us to run this as a standalone application, we need to use a command, and this command we can execute the command from command prompt, and to achieve that you need to run your command prompt as admin, and from here let's navigate to the part where we save our jar file, and we save it in our desktop. So let's use this command cd users slash user slash desktop slash. But in your case, you might not use user, because the reason I'm using user is that if you check my C drive, you can see that is users and user. So in your own, it might be the name of your computer. So the name of my computer is the user is user. That's why I'm using user in my command prompt. Your own might be maybe Tunji, or your own might be Samuel, or whatever, but mine is user. That's why I'm using user here. So for you to execute, check the name of your user on your system and change this to the name of your user on your system. But mine is user. That's why I'm using user. So let me use the command now to generate that. We use this command java dash the server port equals 80 customer dot jar. So if you execute this, you can see Spring. Let's see. Yep. Our program is running now without. You can see that I did not run the program from here. I can close my IDE. You can see I can close my IDE. I can close my IDE. Let me close my IDE. So let me try to execute from the browser. Let me localhost /API/customer, and let's see what will happen. You can see that I don't need to use ports maybe 80 or anything. I can only just use localhost. So localhost, if you want to deploy this now, maybe your domain is learn with something or programming.com. You can use programming.com/ or my API or customer and API or whatever, or customer.com.clinic.something. So this localhost will be your domain name, and this will be the request mapping that we use in our customer controller. So this now we are running the application without IDE, and we are running it as a standalone application. If you have any question, please put it in comment below, and the link to the project is on GitHub, and I will put the link in the description. Please, your feedback is very, very important to me. What you observe about the project, please share your thoughts. Thank you.